My name is Kevin Zeese, and I'm with the Maryland Green Party, and I'm here today to start off a hopefully important stage in the next 2020 election campaign for the Green Party. Howie Hawkins, who is a longtime co-founder of the Green Party, first candidate to run on a fully thought-out Green New Deal, will be making an announcement at the end of this program. I'm going to start by introducing another Maryland Green, introducing the DC Green, David Schwartzman, author of The Earth is Not for Sale. And David just ran for city council and longtime Green, and he'll be making the next comments and introduction. David.
Well, I didn't dress up for this. I didn't know I was going to speak. But in any case, I'm really happy to be here and really encourage Howie Hawkins to run for president. I'm a climate scientist, and I retired from Howard University 7 years ago, so I have a lot of time to be even more active than I have been in the past. And I think the initiative that the Green Party made, starting with Howie Hawkins' run for governor in 2010, putting out the Green New Deal was historic importance. And then, of course, Jill Stein and Al-Jamal Baraka's ticket also put the same vision out. And really what we need is a global Green New Deal for the world. But we should start here and build on, I think, the important initiative that Ocasio-Cortez has in the Congress. But of course, our Green New Deal goes further. And actually, this is in introduction of Al-Jamal, the issue of imperialism, the issue of blocking of a regime change in Venezuela is extremely important in this coming election, and we are sure that our ticket will stand very strong on this issue. So with those few words, I'll please Al-Jamal, I'm a great admirer of his work and what he's doing now. Thank you.
Well, thank you, David, and thank everybody for coming out this morning for this truly historic conversation as we are engaged in a process of attempting to determine who will be the standard bearer for the Green Party. We, I think, all recognize that the Green Party has a fundamental role in advancing a progressive vision for this country and indeed for the world. So we don't take this process lightly. We have seen that even when we have not won elections, we have had an impact on the national discourse. We have seen that one of the recognitions of the Democratic Party was that they saw that there was no clear and coherent message for the population. And therefore, they decided that they're going to borrow ours. In that process, of course, they hollowed out the message. They changed a number of elements because, of course, they are not prepared to go as far as we are because they don't have the analysis that the Green Party has. So this process is fundamentally important. We know that we've got to push the envelope. We've got to raise the kinds of questions that no one else will raise. Because we know that the people of this country are looking for real alternatives, for real solutions. It's quite clear that that the people are looking for an opportunity to support a third-party challenge. Something like 64%, 67% of independents say that there should be a new party. So we are here this morning to talk about that process and hopefully to encourage someone who we know can be that standard bearer, someone that will be in a position with the political and intellectual fortitude to withstand the intense pressure that we know the two parties will direct toward our candidate, because they know that we have the messages and they are prepared this time around to be ruthless in attempting to undermine a third-party challenge and to keep the American public dependent on the limited choice that these two parties represent. So we are here to encourage our dear friend Howie Hawkins to take the challenge. He has the skills and again the abilities to advance progressive vision. Howie was the creator, if you will, of the platform that has really defined what this party has been all about. So I am happy and honored to be here this morning to encourage Howie to take on this sacrificial role in some ways, but one in which we know someone needs to take, because indeed the history and the prospects for prosperity in this country and really globally falls on the shoulders of whoever stands for and with this party in 2020. That might sound exaggerated, but I don't really believe that's the case. The alternatives that have to be presented to the American people are historic, and we have to have someone that can be clear in the articulations of the needs and the aspirations of the people of this country. So thank you, Howie, for considering this run, and we hope that you are in a place where you can make a determination to what degree you're prepared to lead this fight in 2020 and beyond. Thank you. So the next person we're bringing to the podium this morning, another longtime activist, leader here in this country within the Green Party, someone that really needs no introduction, but we'll give it one anyway, our friend and comrade, Margaret Flowers.
Thank you, Adamo, and thanks for coming out today, everyone. So I first met Howie, it's been years, at least a decade ago. I think I met Howie through peace work, initially coming up to Syracuse for the peace activities they had there, going to Fort Hancock to protest the drones, but also through single payer work, through climate action work, and then of course Howie's numerous runs in New York and for governor of New York State, also running in Syracuse, the city of Syracuse. I've always had tremendous respect for Howie. Over the past year, maybe 2 years now, a number of Greens have been kind of talking about, how can we build off of the successes that the Green Party has been having? How can we build off of this important moment where so many crises are coming together? Economic crises, the climate crisis, expanding U.S. imperialism and wars, the Pentagon budget eating up more and more of our federal discretionary budget while people are struggling to meet their basic needs. So many people are seeing that the two major parties are unable, even if they talk about wanting to solve these problems, are completely unable to do that and are looking for alternatives. So we started talking about what would it take to actually build power in this moment. And when we looked around at who might be able to fulfill those big shoes of working to build that power, Howie's name came up. And so we reached out to him, a group of us did late last year. He wasn't thinking about it, it wasn't on his radar. Initially, of course, he was looking forward to what he was going to do during his retirement. And I think over time, I appreciate that Howie has come to understand the importance of this moment and the potential that he has to fill these big shoes and take action to build Green Party power. So when the call was put out to Greens around the country, what do you think about Howie Hawkins considering running for president? More than 100 Greens signed on to a draft Howie letter. So I think that shows that there's, already in this short time, there are people out there who are really looking to Howie to step into this role. And so we hope that more Greens will step up, because what it's going to take, I think, to convince Howie is that we show that there's enough of us behind him that together we can fulfill the responsibility that we have to run a serious campaign, to run a campaign that builds the capacity of the party, that gets ballot access, that organizes around the country, that builds the skills of our local and state Green parties. These are the tasks that we need to do, but one person cannot do them on their own. One person can lead that effort in terms of being a figure out there, in terms of speaking, drawing funds and resources to the party. But we have to show up and be there to stand behind Howie. So I hope that people will go to HowieHawkins.us and sign up, because the more people that sign up, I think the more likely we'll be able to convince him to formally announce that he will run for president, and I hope that he does. So I just want to thank you, Howie, for considering this, and this is a very exciting day. This is the next big step towards that goal, today announcing the exploratory committee. And so go to HowieHawkins.us, those of you who are watching, make a donation, sign up for the volunteer and email list, and let's make this happen. And just one other thing I quickly want to add is that we know 2020, as Ajambo said, is going to be an incredibly challenging year. It's going to be an everybody but Trump year. It's going to be a year when people don't want Greens to even run. And one of the other major reasons that I support Howie is that I know that he has the courage to be able to face that, and the integrity to be able to do it in a way that builds the capacity of the party. And so I really think that he has those skills to maneuver this very difficult time. So with no further ado, I want to introduce Howie Hawkins, longtime activist, union member, worker, involved in new economy. He's got an amazing history. Please go to the website and read about Howie. But thank you so much, Howie, for being here this morning.
Thank you, Margaret, and Ajambo, and Dave, and Kevin, for your introduction, and all the people around the country that have encouraged me to do this. Margaret's right. This is not what I was planning to do. I was a freight handler at UPS, and I've been asked about this before, and I could always say, I can't do that. I got a bunch of time clock. I don't have that excuse anymore. So, I'm honored that people have asked. I don't see it as sacrificial as Ajambo said. It's really an honor to be asked, and it's a privilege if I run, and it's an awesome responsibility. I mean, that's the way I look at it. So yes, today we're announcing the formation of a Hawkins 2020 Exploratory Committee to test the waters. And I don't want to do this if it's not a serious campaign. There's no point. And in the discussions with the people that have asked me to run, we've talked about two primary objectives of this campaign. One is to build the Green Party, build it up so it can really make a difference. We're not just out there to be a protest party, we're out there to change things. And the other thing is, what's the change? We're talking about eco-socialism, in particular an eco-socialist Green New Deal. And hopefully we'll set the standard for that Green New Deal. So let me say a few words about party building and how the campaign can contribute to that. We want to build this party into a major party that's capable of winning thousands of offices in the next few years. Because of the crises we're facing, the two major parties are not solving. It's about scaling up so we can really have an impact at that level. When I say local, I mean, of course, municipal offices, but I also mean local district offices for state legislatures and for Congress. And we've got to get Greens in those positions to begin leveraging the process to get some of these changes we need. Of course, as Margaret mentioned, there are going to be people say we're splitting the vote, the center-left vote. And the primary objective is to get Trump out. Yes, Trump is a racist divider. He's a freeloading leech. He doesn't pay his taxes, his workers, his contractors. He cheats at golf. And he lies every day. I mean, if the Democrats can't landslide this guy, they can't do anything right. You know, they are right to reject his racism and the ultra-right extremism of now what's his party, the Republican Party. But we have to face the fact that the Democrats don't have real solutions. We have the climate emergency. We have a new nuclear arms race. And for too many people, you know, about 40% of the people, according in any year, and 80% of the people in their lifetimes are faced with losing a job, being unemployed, getting evicted, having to go on public assistance. I mean, that's the reality for the majority of people. And right now, even though we have high unemployment, a lot of people working part-time. A lot of people left the labor force. The participant rate is low. So this is every day. So it's a crisis every day for people. And a program's got to appeal to those people while taking care of these larger things about the climate and the arms race. And that's why we're in the Green Party, because the other parties are not solving these things. We can't wait. We can't wait till after 2020. I mean, look at the climate crisis. We are facing mass extinctions and ecosystems collapse. You know, in the next couple of decades, we're talking about what's happening by 2050. Failing agriculture, mass poverty and hunger, hundreds of millions of climate refugees, and then wars over what's left. I mean, this is a Armageddon kind of scene that you'd see in one of the horror movies. And then by 2100, some scientists say between ocean acidification and ocean warming, you're going to cause the phytoplankton to die back so much they produce 2/3 of the oxygen in the atmosphere that animal life, both in the ocean and on the lands, will be threatened. And that includes us. So this is an existential crisis, and we're running out of time. And we can't wait till after 2020. So we're going to be in this race and raise issues, whether it's me or somebody else. So in terms of party building, what we're speaking about is two principal activities. One is to get the Green Party on the ballot line. And we have a lot of, you know, kind of hypocritical politicians in this country always scolding other countries about their lack of democracy. They need to look here about how hard it is to get on the ballot. It's more difficult here than in most other countries with democratic elections. So one of the things, if I run, we want a 51-state campaign. And I say 51 because we consider D.C. to be a state. It should be. In fact, you know, the D.C. statehood Green Party, the statehood part goes back to the People's Party in the early 70s. And I've been involved in independent politics since then, and actually 1968 with the Peace and Freedom Party. And now we're in a situation now where the Greens have 20 parties. But if I run, which we'll, you know, decide in 6 or 8 weeks, we want to start petitioning right now and help the Green Party. There are 19 states where we could be petitioning right now. We can get them done this year, at least have the petitions in hand. We can go into the first of the year with about 40 states. And then we'll get the other 10 or 11 in the course of that year. But that gives us a platform on which to say to the media and the public, look, we're for real, we're for serious, we're in this campaign. And then when we get to the 2020 election, almost 40 states, the ballot line for the Green Party for the next election cycle can be won in those elections. In most states, it's 1 to 5% of the vote for president or another candidate running statewide. It varies from state to state. We got 51 state election laws. But that's very important because then these local candidates I was talking about can run. So that's an essential goal of the Green Party presidential campaign this year as far as I'm concerned. And that's why we're running, because we're building up the Green Party. We can gain that in this election. The other thing we want to do is train local organizers. So we have to run strong local campaigns going forward and have strong local Green Party organizations that, and we need to proliferate that. We need to scale this thing up. Greens are reliable activists. You know, our people show up at the demonstrations, but we need to develop more of our people as organizers. The people who organize the events that the reliable activists show up to. And so we want to draw on the traditions of union and community organizing, as well as election campaigning, to train more of the Greens in how to organize with their local community. So this is about building up the Green Party so we can engage in hundreds or thousands of races in the next few years and win a lot of them. There are 500,000 offices in this country up for election, so there's plenty of room for Greens to run and win. I mean, we have over 150 Greens around the country, but we need to scale that up orders of magnitude. So let's talk about the platform, the Eco-Socialist Green New Deal. The centerpiece of this Green New Deal, is I've talked about it since 2010, is a combination of an economic bill of rights and a green economy reconstruction program. The economic bill of rights is finally realizing that second economic bill of rights that Franklin Roosevelt called for in his State of the Union address in 1944 and reiterated in his 45 address. It was picked up by the civil rights movement as it turned from civil rights to human rights. And the rights I'm talking about are to a living wage job. We want a job guarantee where the government is employer last resort. A guaranteed minimum income above poverty. This is to deal with the dislocations of, transitioning the economy to sustainability. The fact that manufacturing has left. Back in the 60s, it was the inner cities. Now a lot of it's left the country. A lot of manufacturing jobs have been gone. This is a demand that was raised back then by the March on Washington for jobs and freedom. They want a guaranteed income, the freedom budget, the Poor People's Campaign. Third thing is decent housing. Back then they were saying 500,000 houses a year until slums are cleared. We need to have a big expansion of public housing, as well as universal rent control. We just got it in Oregon. It ought to be nationwide. We did it during World War II. At least put a cap on how damn high the rent has become, because people are being pushed out of their homes all over the country. Comprehensive health care. We've been talking about Medicare for all. Democrats aren't going to do that. We will. And a good education. Lifelong free public education from preschool, pre-K, right up through college and both technical and academic education at that level. So that's the economic bill of rights. And then the Green Economy Reconstruction Program, of course, starts with the energy system. We need to get to 100% clean energy by 2030, because that's what the climate science has been saying developed countries need to do. I've been saying that since 2008, when James Hansen, did his projections about dangerous climate change, and when we had scientists in the UK and in Germany coming to the same conclusions. And basically, we want to keep the climate from growing or heating up more than 1 degree above Celsius, above pre-industrial levels, and 350 parts per million carbon. That's what Hansen said is the target. We're past that now. We're at 410 parts per million, now 350. We're at 1.1 degrees Celsius rise, but there's still a chance if we stop emitting carbon and draw it down through regenerative agriculture and afforestation, fix more carbon from the atmosphere to the biosphere, we can still avoid dangerous climate change, which is, a problem that we can't wait to solve, as I described. But it's not just the energy system we're talking about with this Green New Deal, it's all the production systems. Agriculture, aside from climate change, pesticides and the destruction of habitat are killing off insects, which are foundational to the food pyramid and agriculture itself. They're pollinators, and so if insects collapse, agriculture collapses. And we're facing that within a couple of decades, according to science. So we've got to go to a regenerative organic agriculture that saves the insects and rebuilds the soils so they bring carbon out of the atmosphere. And the soils, they're depleting. We've lost half the original soil, and we're within decades of depleting soils in many parts of the world, basic agricultural areas, as well as depleting the aquifers for to provide water for this agriculture. So we've got to build a new agriculture system. There's manufacturing, the military production system. A lot of it needs to be converted to civilian production, useful goods and services. Mass transit, broadband for everybody, and so forth. So that would be an expansive Green New Deal that not just deals with the energy system, but all the production systems. And to do that, which means a coordinated transformation of the economy, we need eco-socialism. We need public ownership and control with economic planning of major sectors of the economy. Exxon and the Koch brothers are not going to take their profits and reinvest it in renewables. So we've got to take over those industries, reinvest the earnings from fossil fuels sold in the transition to clean energy into renewables, not more fossil fuel extraction. banks. We're going to finance this transition. We want to do it at low cost. Public banks are the way to do that. North Dakota has shown that, and because they have a state bank there, we need to spread that around the country. So we're talking about a large sector of public enterprise. And with the Economic Bill of Rights, a large sector of social provision to make sure everybody has these rights. So we're going to take away a lot of the market interactions in the labor and capital markets. But there'll still be a large sector of commercial markets for goods and services. And this is where people that want to be in business for themselves will have, I believe, better opportunities than they have now. They won't have the competition from monopolistic corporations, and they will be better served by public services and public infrastructure that's working again. Those will be the public avenues for private commerce, whether they're cooperatives, which we prefer, or other forms of small businesses, family farmers, self-employed people, working owners of small businesses. This is an area where there'll be plenty of opportunities for people. So, then the question is, okay, how are you going to pay for transforming the whole economy and providing these public goods and services at public cost to people, from healthcare to a job backup to a guaranteed income? And we were saying we got to cut the military budget. We just had an audit. They can't account for $23 trillion of money. That's, there's a lot of waste, fraud, abuse, and probably criminal prosecutions that will come out of an investigation of that. And so we call for that, but right away we can cut back military spending. I mean, we believe, and this is a phrase from Ralph Nader, we should be the world's humanitarian superpower, not its military imperial power. And we should be making friends instead of enemies. We should be providing solar panels and windmills, not drones. We should be helping people develop an agriculture that's regenerative, not exploitative and extractive, and not sustainable. And we should be helping people with their basic needs for healthcare and education, which should be cheaper than spending money on the military and nearly 1,000 military bases around the world. So that's one source of funding for a Green New Deal. We can have more progressive taxation of income, wealth, and estates, which has already become part of the presidential campaign debate. We need ecological taxes, like a progressive carbon tax, where you rebate some of the revenues to low and moderate income people and spend some of it on renewables, a land value tax, severance taxes for resource extraction. I mean, right now, the mineral rights bill, this is another Ralph Nader thing from 1871. These mines, they just pay a few dollars, they get a mine. They don't pay the public for their use of our common wealth, because nobody created those minerals. That was there, and it belonged to all of us. Maybe a company gets something for going to the work and bringing it out of the ground, but they don't get to get all of it, because that's our common inheritance. And then steering taxes, that encourage people to stop polluting and start engaging in sustainable practices. So that's a third source. And then public banks, as I mentioned, is a way to finance long-term capital investments cheaper than going through Wall Street. And the North Bank of North Dakota is not even part of the Federal Reserve System. They basically are the state of North Dakota doing business as the Bank of North Dakota.